Let me pull up the chat right quick. And I'm going to ask you some quick questions before we get started on the real questions. That's just so that the people can get to know you a little better.
Okay.
And then we'll give you the floor so you can speak and plug in whatever you'd like to make sure that we send everybody your way. And I also have my wife, who's also my assistant, and she's going to put all the links in the chat so that the moderators can grab the links and put them up. All right.
Okay.
So,
Thank you. And hi to your wife if she's there
yeah,
too.
she's watching. Hello. All right, guys. You guys are hopping in. That's good. Good news. All right. So we have Marissa Barrera. That's how you pronounce your last name, right?
Correct.
Barrera. All right. So we're going to get started. Quick question. Do you have a favorite book that you've read or a book that you would like to recommend for people to read?
Yes, I are we live already? I'm sorry.
Yeah, we're
Sorry.
live.
Yes, I do. I do. Can I grab it and show you guys
Yeah,
actually? It's
absolutely.
right
Go for
here.
it. Yeah, go for it. What's up, guys? You guys gonna hopefully appreciate this live stream. I'm gonna introduce you guys to Marissa Barrera.
So My Search for Truth and Answers, Kwame Shakur. This is a book I'm currently reading. I haven't finished it, but it is a great read and it's written by a friend of mine. So it's someone I met through movement and he's been through a lot. He's been an activist for many years and just someone I look up to and respect. So Kwame Shakur, he has just come in and gave a lot of support to impacted families and people like myself, and he's sharing his journey on here with the system and his activism.
Word. I'll check it out if I get a chance. Favorite movie or documentary?
I love me the Matrix. I showed my kids the other day. They're small, so had to run through with them, and just it's always a good watch.
Yeah, I watched it not too long ago as well, and I was totally blown away at it. I was like, holy shit, man. I was like, wow. And there was a woman that just came out who said that the Matrix is supposed to be one from the Matrix is supposed to be John Connor from Terminator 2. She actually wrote that in. So I was like, what the hell? I got to show it to my
Yeah,
little brother. But only part one. I didn't really care much for the other movies, just part one.
yeah, it's definitely different. Like right now, watching it than when I watched it years ago. Just the perspective, it changes everything.
Yeah, no doubt. All right. So, favorite music artist?
Let's see. I've been listening to some different. I mean, I listen to different kind of music. I really like more conscious type of music. But right now, I would say there is a female out of LA. Her name is Vel Wonder. She actually goes by Vel9 now. She's about my age, and I just really relate to her music because she just talks about real stuff and growing up out there, and she also sings, and yeah, I just relate to her. So Vel9 is her name.
Word. Nice. We'll check her out. Favorite activist or most impactful activist that you maybe know or follow?
Can I say someone who has passed?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say definitely. One of my favorite is Fred Hampton. He was a Black Panther leader, the leader of the Chicago chapter, and murdered by Chicago police, along with the FBI who raided their home. They had an informant working with them. They really took down. At the time, he was 21 years old, running stuff, and I feel like the government. I mean, I don't feel like it. I know, but they've targeted people who were leaders and had a great mind on them and who were doing stuff. So I just reflect back on his work a lot, and I really like the Rainbow Coalition that he was involved with, and yeah, that he was not scared, to say the truth and to stand up. So he's one of my favorite.
Word. Okay. So now we're gonna start to get into it. Police impact just about every community throughout this nation and many communities on social media as well. Can you tell us about the community you find yourself in, whether it's supporting or organizing for rallies or protests, before you answer big massive shout out to Tina Duarte. I feel like she's a family member, like she's a prima or one of my sisters. Like I relate to her, like I feel her pain, and she's like, she sounds just like my family does. So yeah. Um, so can you tell us about the
Yeah,
community?
thank you. And yeah, I just want to touch on Tina as well. She's chatting with her yesterday, and I consider her family as well. I've known her for a few years now, so shout out to Tina. So as I've been involved in the work, we're coming up on 8 years, and currently, right now, it's a lot of impacted families who I engage with. Impacted families meaning people who have lost a loved one to police. Like our loved ones really were killed at the hands of police. And started right away when my brother was killed. Families who also, not just, sorry about that.
That's all right.
This isn't even my tablet.
Moderators, I have my wife putting the links on the chat. So if you guys can, please grab the links and keep putting them. And you guys go subscribe to her channel. It's on there now. You guys make sure we go show her some love and support.
Yeah, thank you. So fast forward to today, it's not just people who have lost a loved one to police that I find myself working with and engaging with. It's also people who have been brutalized by the police, people who have been wronged in the system in some way or another. I know some folks who have tried to use the system, but it turned against them as a. And I'm so sorry about this.
That's all right.
I don't even know how to turn this tablet off. I'm gonna just drop it over here because
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
I have a guest over and.
Say his name, Michael Barrera. That was her brother's name.
Sorry, have family over and an extra tablet in my room, and I
That's
don't
cool.
know the
That's cool.
password.
That's
So,
all right.
so yeah, I really just I find myself today also with a lot of people who are very strong, a lot of people who are not afraid to stand up against the system. So I find value in that, working alongside them and learning their stories as well and their fight. Yeah, it's been a long fight. So right now, I do know a lot of activists and people in movement from across the country. I've traveled across the country to stand with other impacted families. So
Yeah, it's not just
yeah,
in California. I've noticed that in California, there's a community of families who have lost loved ones to the hands of police. And it's not just in California, but I know in California, it seems like people get together and they go to rallies and stuff like that. And you guys seem to be connecting really well. I'm from what I'm hearing, I guess you go out through to other states as well.
yeah, I've definitely traveled. Most of my traveling across over the past 8 years has been movement related. So I was just in Ohio last year, and yeah, just the events for impacted families. Sometimes a lot of families will come from different states to join one family, and been to many events like that. So right now, I'm pretty deep in the amount of actually impacted families I know. It's hundreds actually at this point. 8 years, in my email list with impacted families, it's in the hundreds. And with people we've helped through the organization, it's been impacted families from across the country.
Do you want to talk about the story of your brother?
Um, yeah, I'm always open to talk about my brother. It is a traumatic story, it's a horrible story, but I do talk about my brother and I continue to share what happened, not to keep his name alive, of course, and to share the injustice that has happened to my family. But I want people to know also how to respond when this happens. So sharing our stories, and also for other impacted families, some are scared, some don't share their stories, some really stay silent, or they just will not really be vocal and let their lawyer handle it. And sometimes these lawyers, tell families just to stay silent, even though a lot of people regret that later, from what I've seen. So, Michael Barrera, my brother was 30 years old when he was killed at the hands of 5 Woodland police officers in our hometown of Woodland, California, here in California. Yeah, Michael was targeted. He had actually had an experience with one of the officers. I know for a fact one of the officers because he had been harassing him around town, and that's Officer Wright. Um, the way Michael ultimately lost his life, it started at his apartment. We don't really have the details of this part. Someone assaulted him in his apartment just moments before he was cornered into a cul-de-sac by 5 officers. The evidence is there. The video, I have a video and I have all the photos of what happened to his apartment, which there's punches in the wall, there's splashes of blood, even on the wall, fingerprints of blood. So there's definitely something horrible went down. Michael was able to get out of his apartment, but he was killed 3/4 of a mile away from his home. That was in a cul-de-sac. What happened at the apartment, I can only imagine. I will never really know the truth, and we don't know who was in there. But what we do know is the cops were looking for him immediately, and one of the officers was the one who had assaulted him it was 2 weeks prior, I believe, 2 or 3 weeks prior, he had assaulted him. And yeah, once they got in the cul-de-sac, this is where we do have the dash cam, and they didn't have body cam videos, but they had audio. So you can hear everything at my brother's death. When they first start approaching him, they had already had their guns out, been trying to shoot him with the taser. And Michael, so when we see Michael's backing up into the cul-de-sac, he does have his hands up. He's saying, "I'm not a threat." He's saying, "I didn't do anything." And he's asking the cops why they're trying to kill him. My brother, whatever happened, he knew before he was dead that they were trying to kill him. And so in the video, Michael is a good distance from them. There was no de-escalation on their part. Michael was, in fact, de-escalating the situation. Hands up. He didn't have weapons on him, though they try to say he had a golf club. There was a golf club in that yard of the man's house that he was ultimately killed in. But on the video, and before they physically touched him, he didn't have anything. He was saying he's not a threat. And they started it by tasing him. And that's Officer Lau. He ends up tasing him excessively, past the protocol, past the taser guidelines, where it can be fatal. And he tased him so bad. So he tased him and he kept it on him. There's 2 different ways that these tasers work. So he kept it on him, and it was so bad that one of the officers started feeling the effects because they were all starting to pile on him, beat on him. And at that time there's 3, and they got him into handcuffs super quick, and you could hear it on the audio. And that's how we know approximate minutes that this went on, because you hear on the audio when the handcuffs are getting in place, and you hear everything they are doing to my brother. It lasts about 4.5 minutes to when they first make that physical contact with the taser. So 4.5 minutes. When I explain people my brother's killing, it's easy for me to say he's an example of a mixture of George Floyd's killing and Tyree Nichols. So the beating, the officer sitting on his back and neck, and but he had 2 officers who sat on his body while he was already face down. And yeah, 4.5 minutes. I can't breathe. He's fighting to breathe. He's telling the officer, the one who assaulted him prior, Officer Wright came in when my brother was already down and in handcuffs and tasered excessively. He came in, he knew it was Michael Barrera they were already looking for. So he came in, he immediately stomps on my brother's head. That's how he ran out of his patrol car, left the door open, ran out, started stomping on my brother's head. The marks were there. And then he sits on his back. And that's while 2 officers are sitting on his back. My brother, I can't breathe. This officer's calling him by name, Mr. Barrera. And then my brother's like, "You know who the fuck I am," because of the incident that happened. That was his last. That was my brother's last words. Trying to survive, trying to breathe. He told them I couldn't breathe. He couldn't breathe, and they told him if you could talk, you could breathe, and that's not factual. That's not true. Um, Medical professionals will tell you otherwise, and that's one of the things that helped us in our civil case. Actually, um, my brother's death was very violent and brutal. It wasn't like a shooting and hey, we shot him because we were scared for our life. It was long drawn out. And I've had to, as his sister, I'm his little sister. My brother is 2 years older than me. And so our roles, he was my protector my whole life. Guys act weird and creepy. Who's there for me? My brother. Somebody's stalking me. Who's there for me? My brother. So this is time that I had to turn around and be that for my brother. So yeah, very violent and brutal death. It was very controversial in our hometown because their first narrative, they didn't call us. We heard from an acquaintance at the hospital who knew my mom, and she called my mom at her work. You need to get here. Your son's here. They brought him in dead to the hospital. And that's how we knew. If it wasn't for that lady, and I know she got in trouble for it because they named her in the paperwork. Um, I don't know how everything would have went down, but with the way we found out, we were able to pull up. We pulled up right away. My mom showed up to the hospital. I left my work in a different town, and they already started their cover up and their false narrative. So I did show up to the hospital. My mom didn't tell me yet. She didn't want to tell me on the phone so I can crash or something. And so they told me when I got there. We were two doors down from my brother's body. They had it blocked off already with the sheriff's department blocking it off. A nurse, a doctor, and the hospital chaplain 3 times separately that day tried to take my mom by her hand and walk her in there to have her last moments with her son. Nobody let her. It was while we were at the hospital that I realized I knew something when shady was going on. At that point, they had only told us that Michael was in an altercation and just killed in somebody's yard. That's the story. That not that police were involved. And then I got notice that there were cops at my brother's house inside. So that's when I left the hospital. I realized they're not going to let us see my brother. I left the hospital and I pulled up to his apartments. I had his keys. Tried to get in. Officers blocking me off, threatening to arrest me. Yeah, it was just a whole mess. The story changed 5 times in the first 2 days. A lot of people cheered the cops on because they tried to make my brother, they said that he was naked, that he had scissors, a chef's knife, and a golf club, and that he was attacking people. And all of that was not true. I got surveillance from the apartments the next day. My brother was never naked. They just they said he was naked with a trench coat. And to me, they're trying to make him seem like a big old weirdo who
Yeah.
was out there trying to perv on the community, which was far from the truth of how my brother would behave. So that's a summary of what's happened to Michael. We didn't know the whole story in the first. I didn't see the videos till 2 years in.
Wow.
We didn't. Our lawyers didn't pass that along. They didn't pass in the parts. In fact, when I was going through all the footage, I've personally had to go through everything, all the body cams, all the different perspectives from the officers, and I'm the one that found just earlier this year footage of the officers laughing about it. They laughed about it afterwards. They were by a patrol car and it was capturing the audio, and they're laughing. And one of them's like, "Oh, while he's laughing, he's saying, yeah, he went down." And I was like, "Should I stop beating the fuck out of him?"
Wow.
And they're on video saying this stuff. Officer Lau, who excessively tased Michael, also took it upon himself to get his personal cell phone and take photos of my brother and the scene and send them to people.
Wow.
Um, there's a lot of dirty details. Yeah, so basically, when you think about police brutality and like everything I've shared here, I'm sure you've heard it in other cases. Our case has all of it. So
Wow.
it's been a long fight. And these details, the fact that my brother was targeted, and he did tell us that the cops wanted to kill him. He told multiple people. He was posting about it um, just before he was killed, about law enforcement. So that's why you see me here, how I am today, and how I just been still fighting. It's been almost 8 years.
Yeah, you've been dedicated to find justice for Michael Barrera, and I see your passion, I see your dedication to it, and it's sad to see, but at the same time, I feel you changed your energy from being angry to being dedicated and being strong to you know when sometimes family members die, it's hard to grieve if you don't find justice, and sometimes you can't grieve until you find justice, and I understand that. So it's sorry that's happened to you, and well, one of the reasons why I want to interview you and talk to you, and because I want to have more of your community, have their voices heard, their stories heard, and start putting the pressure on these departments who keep these bad cops. Like, I'm guessing all these cops still work for either that department or a different one.
Correct. Of the five involved, two have retired from the department over the years, and two have moved departments. So we have Officer Wright is with the Sacramento Sheriff's Department at patrolling the airport right now currently, and then Hannah Gray is at Elk Grove as a community information officer or public information officer. And then we have one officer, Parveen Lau, who is still with the Woodland Police Department. He's still terrorizing the community. He's the one that started the whole physical altercation with Michael and violated all the policies. He's still there. And, in this fight, like, I can't say that I'm going to get true justice from my brother before I die. I can't say that. Recently, I saw a case from, I believe it was 9 years ago, that the officers were charged. Out of all the hundreds of families I've known and the stories that I've studied over the years, only but a handful have actually been charged. We have some that have been charged, but they don't get, it doesn't
Right,
go through. They get dropped. So we have
right, right.
Joseph Lamantia out of Modesto. He's already killed 5 people. I'm friends with his Trevor Seaver as his latest victim. He did get charged. Eventually, the DA charged him. Well, what happened now? Everything dropped, and how he's suing the county for charging
Wow,
him. Yeah, so
unbelievable.
we don't see justice. I take my small wins. A lot of families drop out. A lot of families don't even like start the fight, and I don't blame them because of, I don't know. I had a different thing about me, I guess. I just wanted to fight. I saw the hurt from my mom, my dad, my brother's daughter, my whole family. And I'm like, they're not gonna do my brother like this. They're not gonna do my family like this. That's why and I grew up like that with brothers. I grew up having to fight sometimes, being stubborn, being having to speak up and advocate for myself. And part of that is that I grew up with brothers. So part of this fight to me, like you mentioned Tina earlier, I just met her, I think 2 or 3 years ago, and she saw what I was doing with Voices of Strength, and she reached out. She said, my brother was killed 20 years ago. And me and her just clicked because I meet families like that all the time. And 20 years ago, it doesn't matter because you still have all that traumatic detail. She sent me the pictures, and then one of them is a picture of her looking at the scene. You could tell it's 20 years ago, and she's just looking at the scene with the horror on her face. And that broke my heart because I'm like, I know that feeling. I see these new families all the time. I spent a lot of time doing outreach with families when I was first impacted. I didn't even realize what I was doing. I was just reaching out, sorry for your loss, sharing their loved one stuff. And that's how I met a lot of families because families also did that for me. When Michael was killed, was it my best friends who came to support? Nah, they weren't my best friends within a couple weeks. It wasn't our family. We have a lot of family in Woodland. Have even half of them showed up? Nope, they still don't show up. It was strangers. It was activists from different areas. It was Sacramento folks who came through to Woodland and came through to support us for our first rallies. And it was impacted families who began to message me. They support what I was doing. I was very vocal. I was super vocal, like putting the information out there. And that's, yeah, those families taught me a lot. The older families, some of them 20 plus years since their loved one was killed, but they're giving me advice and just sharing that what I'm going through is, it's real and I'm not crazy. Because people, the community response was honestly sickening and crazy. A lot of them were so happy that the cops killed my brother. We had people posting in the Good Neighbors of Woodland group. They're like, thank you to, they named all the cops, thank you for keeping our community safe. While I was known in Woodland as I was in the fitness industry for many years. I ran my own fitness business. I trained so many people out of Woodland. I had done community events. So people knew me. And so some people believed us, like, hey, well, we should probably, not that they just believed our narrative, but this is kind of shady. Let's hear what the family's saying. And they kept neutral, but some attacked us, and we're so happy that the cops killed. And it's truly disturbing to me because I see this across the country. If you look at killings and you can read the comments, you're going to see a lot of people play stupid games, win stupid prizes, a lot of horrific comments. But like I said, helping the families, it has been helpful for me. I guess I never said this before, but people would be like, part of your healing journey. And I do realize me helping other people has helped me to get through, or some of these families that were later than mine, the knowledge I provided and how I worked with them through my organization helped them and help them with success in their cases too. So some things that my family missed, I'm able to warn other families about.
Word. And my next question is, what are some possible solutions to the problems in policing that you think might help make this nation a better and safer place for everyone? Because we know there's an obvious problem, right? But what do you see any solutions that could be made for police, whether it's policy or even though they don't follow policy?
Yeah, so I used to be kind of a believer. I have spent time doing legislative work as well over the years. We have gotten bills passed in California for the use of force, for receiving records relating to our loved ones' killings, for the transparency. Personally, I would say abolition at this point. Even for the bills we've got passed, they're supposed to save lives and they're supposed to hold cops accountable, but they really haven't proven to be work. They still find ways to get around policies, or they just straight up be like, I'm not going to charge them.
Right.
So to me, we've been through, there's two sides when we're fighting back against the police to the law. There's the criminal side and there's the civil side. So our criminal case is just shut down. You're not shit. We don't care about the details or the facts. So then our families have to go through the civil side if the family files, which I feel like everyone, not just impacted families, if you've ever been abused by the police, if you've ever had your rights violated, always sue the police. That's my thing now. If I ever get a chance, if they do anything to violate my rights, I will take every opportunity to sue them. I just haven't so much. So yeah, I don't feel like, as far as it's gone. Am I frozen?
No, you're freezing a little bit, but we can still hear you and see you.
As
Um,
Okay.
do you want to plug in?
Yeah, so
Okay, go ahead and finish.
oh no, I was just gonna say I don't really see
Right,
the
makes
justice
sense.
system doesn't work for us and people are still being killed. So no accountability. It hasn't changed. Even the whole 8 years I've been here. It really hasn't changed.
Makes sense. Would you like to plug in anything you're working on, whether it's an organization, shout out to other organizations as well, and or people you'd like us to keep an eye out for?
Um yeah, so so our organization, just supporting families. I do want to give a shout out to the board, our board. I have impacted families on our board who help me make the decisions, and they've been great. They have all been impacted and are all fighters in their own areas. As far as, we do have an upcoming event for my brother are going to join in Woodland, California on February 8th. It's a Saturday. I don't have the details yet, but we are coming back to Woodland and making some noise for my brother. Shout out to, I do have two organizations. Real quickly, I do want to say, as the impacted family, it's hard to find legit organizations, even legit activists and folks to connect with and turn into allies. It's a lot of these organizations that I've met over the years, they do not have the best interests for impacted families, and they would use us for our stories. They see us working, they see Marissa Barrera going out there and fighting, they're like, hey, some work for us. And they try to use our pain. Um, I have met some great shout out to Courage out there in Oakland and Debug in Silicon Valley, Santa Clara. They support impacted families. They both this year have sent me on a trip, different trips to just go out and have some healing time. And they're supporting us not just on the surface, but below it as well.
There is one channel. I'm not going to mention his name because I don't want to start another pinchy fight. But there is one channel that does what we do. And from my understanding, he went to go supposedly find justice for families that are a family member that lost a loved one for a kid. They went out there and a shit show went down. Dude didn't want to leave the house. All kinds of fighting back and arguing back and forth. And dude now like talks really bad about her, blames her for calling the cops on her son. And I made a video talking about that is not what we're supposed to be doing, whether you agree with how that went down or not. What we don't want to do is make another community hate our community or do things in the wrong way where it's going to make people not trust what we do. So I've been kind of reluctant to really unite with other communities, but I have been following you for a while. I have been following Tina and other folks as well, and I've been wanting to find a way to connect our community with your community. Maybe I didn't think it was the right time. Our community grew really fast because people see how important it is to empower yourself, knowing your rights. And we do have a large community now, and I really, really want to try to connect our community with your community. That's why I want all you guys watching right now to make sure you go subscribe to Marissa's social media accounts. We are going to put all the links in the description, pinned comments, all that. And I want to get your voices heard. I want to see what I can do so that they're not going on just deaf ears. Whatever you have to say, the people should pay attention and see what we can do to help, see what we can do to find a way to maybe find some possible solutions to some of these problems and unite. And I understand the court of public opinion is very powerful sometimes, without, us complaining and belly aching to the government when they do this kind of shit won't happen. Through our channels, we have seen a lot of cops get fired, chiefs of police resign, and even the mayor as well. And we've seen cops and government go after people and destroying their lives, trying to ruin their lives. And sometimes, like for instance, in the case of your brother, we don't see it until it's too late. And if we can start getting bad cops out of there, hopefully we can try to prevent this type of stuff,
Yeah. And I just do want to touch on, I don't know that channel, but just on these killings where people are actually calling for wellness check for their loved ones. So many. So I know your channel knows, but always a reminder, not to call the police on our loved ones.
Right.
I would say call families, call your neighbor, call a friend, call somebody, because it's risky. And I have met too many families who made that call and they live with it forever.
Yeah, cops are not equipped to deal with family issues. They bring a gun and an ego, and they're, like I said, they're not equipped to deal with family issues. A lot of people have mental issues, and it could just be one argument. I grew up in a family where we argued and fought a lot. Windows are being broken, holes in the walls, and dumb shit, doors being kicked open. We're a bunch of fighters and shit. I gotta say, if cops were called to my house when all that shit happened, somebody probably would have ended up dead, because in those moments, in those times, we're not trying to listen to anybody. And sometimes cops come with the attitude, and they're very condescending as well. They're smirking in your face. They know how to escalate situations so that people can get pissed off. And cops, they love that shit, because the more people get pissed off, the more they can use the violence that they train, because they don't train in our natural rights. They train in brute force and compliance, just obey, just comply,
Yeah.
and it's sad. I think that what we see happening out here and it doesn't work. It doesn't benefit the people. It's a unsustainable system for the people, but it is a sustainable system for the government because they really don't care. They lock up people, and as long as they got people going through the courts, then they can justify the money that they're spending. And I see a lot of possible solutions. I try to bring that to the table. One of those possible solutions is just don't call the cops.
Mm.
Like you said, call family members, call friends, just leave somewhere, go somewhere, see if you can find somebody, go calm down, take a walk. That's one thing I've learned how to do is take a
Yeah.
walk when I get mad because I can still lose my shit sometimes, but I don't want to. So I find a way to get out of the house, go take a walk, whatnot,
Yeah.
and hopefully nobody's calling the cops on me if I have an angry face. And
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. It's real out here. I, I look at what happened with my brother and I see when someone is killed by police, it's a big money maker. It's a huge money maker. I look at not for us, for everyone except the families, unless the family eventually gets a civil lawsuit that they win or settle with. When I look at what the city of Woodland has spent on killing Michael, it's been millions and millions of dollars. Like it's our family took a settlement earlier this year. I was not in favor of the settlement, to be clear. I had fought this case myself. Like I have all the documents. I did it, like in it, and I presented it to lawyers. We had 4 different sets of lawyers through the time, and um, so yeah, my family, got their multi-million-dollar settlement. But then I look at every time, the cops got overtime. They hired these experts. They had the whole case to fight, which is more money that they're spending. So it's just so much money for each one that's killed. And I know that the city of Woodland, there are some people who care. There's some, but I feel like it's very smaller than those who don't care. But I'm like, you guys don't at least care about your city money because sometimes that's all these community members care about. They don't care if someone was killed in the streets, but apparently they still don't care because it's already happened. The other thing I do want to mention is with someone who was killed before my brother in that same town by the same PD years prior, their settlement, their family had a $300,000 settlement, which I feel is terrible for a life. But part of that settlement went to help retrain the police. I don't know the details because that's the note I seen in the documents. But to me, that blew my mind because you're taking the family part of the family settlement to help retrain police. Because earlier you mentioned their training, how they're trained. They're trained for this force and brutality. So all of this is mind blowing. Also, when I have sat through civil cases through a trial for families who have went through their whole trial against the cops, even when we're there and have the evidence, you have the cops contradicting themselves and lying, you can still have a jury who has they are a cop family, and the impacted family still might not win just because people love the police. That was the case of a one I sat on 2 years ago here in Sacramento. Everything was wrong. Everything was not what the cops said, but they still cited. No, it ended up in a mistrial. But the family, yeah, they didn't get to go back to trial. So I just feel like we have everything against us. So it's a long fight, and it's like I said, it's a lot of money. It's a lot of money coming out from each killing, and they are happening every day. They absolutely are. I have alerts on for emails, for alerts when there are new killings. I have all my different keywords because I know what to look for. So I'm being notified each day across the country when there are killings. Sometimes there'll be a very short article like, "Oh, the person just fell and died." But then I'm reading it. They said that about my brother. My brother just died. And so the general public, even if you are kind of watching this kind of stuff, you're not seeing them as they're happening unless they have a family member like me who's like, and even like me, I didn't get people seeing my brothers. It took time, but they're just happening every day, multiple a day. Most of them are
no
just
shit,
quickly covered up.
no shit. It's very true. Um, Any last thing you want to say? You want to encourage people to do anything? And just before that, I want to let you know that whenever you have a story you want to tell, you want to highlight someone else's story, you ever want to do a live stream or do a quick interview, talk about it, I'll be more than happy to bring you on. And we'll start sharing these stories. We'll start getting the word out. And I want your voice and your community's voice to be heard. And when these cops kill people, when they don't have to sometimes, and when they do these types of things, hopefully we make enough noise to get these cops fired, because it's a dangerous place out there right now, and it shouldn't be dangerous because of police. Like, I'm more afraid of cops than I am of criminals. I can deal with
Yeah.
criminals, but how do you deal with cops who are trying to kill you or trying to hurt you and laughing in your face while doing it? Like, yeah, I do better around criminals, and that's because cops are criminals as well, and they have umbrellas of protection. So it's just
Yeah.
what a crazy world we're living in.
Truly. Yeah, and just to end off, just, thank you for wanting to uplift our stories. When I started the organization in 2020, that's exactly how we started. Was, I realized, looking at all these families, all of our stories have similarities, very eerie stuff, very corrupt stuff. And so I started inviting families to do one-on-one interviews. So we have a lot on my channel, and some of those moms, there's over 40 of them in different states. Some of those parents, they're like, no one has ever asked me about my child or what happened. Like, that was their first time even talking. So there's a need for support for these communities, though I know not everybody can give it. I know I have an understanding, so they feel comfortable with me. But the other thing before we finish, I do want to highlight real quick what I have been covering as well. And it's one of the most disturbing things to me is the sexual predator cops out there. I have been doing them in the short video forms on my page, and those are very high out there. We get these cops, and then when I'm following the case, we'll see them that they harmed minors in their position of power. Oh, they harmed multiple minors. And then what happens? They get probation or 6 months jail time? Like, what?
Right.
It's so crazy out here. So that is something, I'd say over the past year, I've met some victims like that from our stories. One of the killer cops I covered, he also um, sexually assaulted a disabled woman who I'm friends with now, and I've lifted her story. So there's a lot of bad stories like that, and a lot of them are involving children too, and it's across the country. I mean, um, yeah, I have some of those videos up. I pervert cops.
Yeah, I have seen a lot of your videos that you do that, and I'm glad you highlight that, because we do have a bootlicker community out there, and can you blame them? I mean, look, they live in nice areas, nice neighborhoods. You think they give a shit if the cops violate somebody's Fourth Amendment rights? No, he's an undesirable. Get him out of the area. Do whatever you got to do. Get him out of the area. So you're always going to have a bootlicker crowd who does believe that cops protect and serve their communities. In reality, cops do protect and serve their communities by violating people's rights sometimes. Like, just not too long ago, I was driving in a nice neighborhood, and a cop was messing with the homeless person just because some woman didn't like to see him on the sidewalk, which he's allowed to as long as he's not blocking anyone. Look, it's not a pretty sight. I get it. But to call the cops on him and have the cops come out and they're talking to him and asking him, can we take you to the hospital? Can we take you here? Can we? And they're just doing their best to get him out of the neighborhood. And it's like,
Yeah,
they weren't able to do anything because I was standing there with the camera.
yeah,
So I encourage everybody to record police. Try to do it in a way where, even if you have to do it from a distance, so you until you gain a little bit more courage to get closer, to get in there and record, and know what your rights are. Know that you can, have the freedom of press to be out there and record in public. You don't need press credentials nor a press pass. You have freedom of speech. You have the freedom of, religion, pray to no God or any God. Assembly. That's why we're allowed to go to church, schools, backyard barbecues, because we can assemble. When we assemble and we realize something is wrong in government, we can petition our government for redress of grievances. Part of all that is, flipping them off, or belly aching, letting them know how we feel about what they're doing. And I definitely want to talk with you more, and share more of the stuff that you're sharing as well. I want to help you get more support on your social media accounts. I think you're doing great work, and the cops did this, and now they have to feel your wrath. You know what I mean? Your voice. Let your voice be heard. And everybody watching, make sure you guys go subscribe to Marissa Barrera's YouTube channel and her Instagram and whatever else. We are going to be dropping all the links in the description and in the pinned comment. We're going to try to get you as much support as possible. This is a wonderful community that I find myself involved in. There's a lot of fuckers doing a lot of stupid shit, but at the most part, it's a wonderful community. People get together and we'll make phone calls. The people will make phone calls. The people will show up. The people will donate, try to help whichever way possible. So you guys, this is Marissa Barrera, and thank you for sharing your stories and sharing your story and sharing what you got going on. I commend you for your work. You're a strong woman, and thank you for all you do as well. Shout out to Jason Bassler, who's a mutual friend of ours. Good guy.
Yeah. Great guy. Yeah. Thank you so much. I appreciate you having me on here. And I have been saying for years, I appreciate people who go out there with the camera, whether you're regularly cop watching, auditing, whether you're just driving on the street and you see it, like you can really save a life.
Yeah.
I wish someone would have been there to record the day my brother was killed.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Sure. You're welcome. Thank you. We'll talk again soon.
All right. Take care, everybody.
Have a blessed day.